Hello, hello. This is Tonya, and welcome back to Nurses Speak. This is a channel for Black nurses, nurses of color, and open to all nurses. This is your channel where your voice can be heard. No topic is off limits. So like, subscribe, share, and join the conversation. And please post your comments. Any topic is fair game. So I'd like to start off this video picking up on where I left off with a prior video where I just talked a little bit about workplace violence. And so just this week, today in fact, I was reading an article that I will post the link to in the description of this video about a nurse and paramedic that were stabbed by a patient in I believe it was DePaul Hospital in Montana. And it's particularly disheartening to hear that, to read that, when I look at the details of the situation. And in addition to that, there's a link to the local newspaper's article that gives a little more detail about, the scenario that occurred in this facility. But what's common in both articles is that it was stated that nurses in this facility for years have been pleading with their administration for more security presence in the emergency room, as well as for installation of metal detection systems. Okay. It is also indicated that nurses, being the frontline workers in the emergency room, have also been responsible for confiscating weapons and firearms from patients when they arrive in the emergency room. In fact, it also states that the emergency room director had also went to the administration asking for additional security and was turned down. And bear in mind, these are not isolated events. These are acts of violence against healthcare workers that are happening all over this country. And thankfully, neither of those workers, the nurse or the paramedic, lost their lives. But that could very well have been the outcome. Okay? And so, while we're still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, okay, which was quote unquote one war, there's still another battle going on, which involves violence against healthcare workers. And I just want to know, what will it take for these administrators in these facilities, the owners of these proprietary establishments, to look at the risk that their workers are faced with every day that they show up? What are they going to do about it? I mean, if it's well stated and documented that this has come up time and time again, a request for security, a request for metal detection systems to support the staff that's providing the care under stressful and rapidly changing environments. Okay? Putting their lives on the line each and every hour that they're there. And for that to be ignored, for that not to be heard, for the administrations and ownership, leadership to be nickel and diming people who are out there putting their lives at risk to provide care for absolute strangers, mind you, who may be violent, mentally ill, you know, and for them to be denied the right to safety in their workplace. And again, we're talking 8, 10, 12 hours. Days, evening, nights, weekends, and holidays. So this is a workforce that's already giving up a lot. And they're being asked, expected to risk their life as well. Okay. So clearly, when I say nurses deserve to be heard, this article is really emphasizing that point. And I'll say it again. It is documented in this specific case that nurses had been asking for years. Some nurses have even left their positions at this facility because of their safety concerns. They left, okay? And can I tell you, when they leave, they're not looking back and they're not regretting leaving. You know what they are doing? They're thanking their lucky stars and their higher powers that they got out alive. Okay? Because when you're negotiating for your contracts and you're going up against a leadership that's deaf to your concerns, you can strike and you can talk about more paid time off, increasing your benefits, raising your salary, nurse-patient ratios. But I encourage you to seriously look at your workplace safety as one major factor in negotiations. Okay? This needs to be addressed. And facilities need to get more proactive, regardless of the cost of what it would be to implement a safety mechanism, particularly in these high-risk areas, starting with your emergency rooms as the point of entry. And in particular, you know, you're dealing with trauma facilities. Oftentimes there's a correlation between people who are coming in as trauma victims that can also be the inflictors of trauma on others, which heightens the risk and the potential that they may also be armed, especially if they were picked up off the street or came in willingly and had not been, brought in by police, right? So if they have a weapon, if they had a weapon, they would still have it on them. And depending on their state of mind, they may be willing to use it, all right? And not be able to distinguish who's helping them, whether they're helping them or not. You don't know what violent, raging state they're going to be in when they walk in or brought in. So these are all things to be taken into consideration. And it can't all be lumped into, oh, these people are mentally ill. No, everybody that's shooting and stabbing and grabbing, various random objects and clobbering people, they're not necessarily mentally ill. These may just be violent, homicidal people, all right? So you may or you may not have an established clinical mental health diagnosis, and you may not have had time to figure that out, right? The main thing you know is this person just picked up a chair and they want to clobber me, or they pulled out a knife, or they snatched up an IV pole and they're just waving it around. Okay? Right there, you're not thinking about, oh, what ICD-10 code is this one? You don't know. You just need to, get out of the line of fire so that you don't lose your own head, right? It becomes, you have to think of your own self-preservation. But the danger about being a healthcare worker is that, unlike the police, you don't have anything that you can pull up. You don't have a taser. You don't have a firearm, right? So you either got to try to prevent that person from hurting themselves and hurting others, right? Because this is what we do, okay? We engage with the violent people. We can't go from afar and try to, and shoot at them. We're right up close and personal with them, doing the best we can to manage a volatile situation. A lot of times with inadequate support, right? I know my nursing training didn't involve any self-defense classes, right? Or dealing with violence. I mean, I believe that you would have to obviously do what you can to be safe. But at the same time, you're in an environment where there's other patients too that could potentially be harmed. And the first thing they're going to want to do and look at in an investigation is, oh, what did the nurse do? Did you follow the protocols? Did you follow the policies and procedures on what to do in these situations? And again, I go back to the question, are there active drills being held in these places? Are there drills to address violent situations, active shooter situations? Is it being done on every shift? Who are the different departments involved? And what is their responsibility when that code is called for a violent situation or active shooter situation? Everybody needs to know what everybody's supposed to be doing and how quickly it's supposed to occur. Right? This is not anything to be taken lightly. This is not anything to be negotiating about. Because if people are already stressed out, burnt out about all the other things that have been discussed previously ad nauseum, what makes these facilities leadership believe that this too, on top of everything else, is gonna slide and be okay? Because I can tell you, I've seen firsthand people becoming violent in emergency rooms. And it's not pretty. And it's not easy to de-escalate those situations. Okay? And fortunately, where I worked, we did have a strong security presence. And they did intervene, I would say, fairly rapidly when it was necessary. And they were in our emergency rooms to assist. And I know that when I had to call them, yes, I had to be very proactive in calling, requesting that they stay when necessary to support the clinical staff so that everyone could remain safe. All right? Because no amount of workers' compensation is going to help you if you suffer some brain damage because of a workplace incident and you have to go out on permanent disability. Then what? Okay? That's a significant risk to your livelihood. And then what happens to your quality of life after that? So these are all types of things to consider. But as I said, each one of us has to do some serious considering about the conditions that we work in, what's important, you know, and what's relevant to continuing to do what we do, and what needs to change. All right? I mean, there's not much more else I can say. This is a situation that needs to get under control. And perhaps it might take some lawsuits. Perhaps it might take, you know, a nurses union really advocating and going to court to say, look, you know, we tried everything we can and we're not safe here. Our nurses are not safe here. Something needs to be done. And it may need to be handled outside the facility. You may not get the support you need from within the facility. And oftentimes that's the case. So you do what you have to do. But you speak and you get louder and louder until you are heard. It's that simple. Sometimes there's no other way. Or you just leave. You know, you have to choose. And I've said it before as well. I'm not the person to tell people, oh, you should leave your job. No, that's an individual decision whether you should leave the place where you work or decide to stay. Because I know that there are some that will leave. And I know that there are those that will stay. But out of those that choose to stay, there are those that will stay and suffer. And there are those that will stay and fight. And so you just have to decide which group you're in. Because those that stay and suffer will eventually have to make a decision if they want to stay and get involved in the fight or if they want to leave, because it only gets worse. All right. We're nearing the end of this pandemic. COVID is still going to be here. People are still going to be coming in sick. Still, not everyone is going to choose to be vaccinated. And so it's something that's always going to be dealt with. These booster shots, well, they only last in a few months as far as their protective capabilities. And so then what? We still have these battles to face, right? Because these other things haven't gone away. If you notice, the pandemic has waned, but we're still dealing with the nurse-patient ratios. We're still dealing with the violence in the workplace. We're still dealing with the wage issues. Everything that was there before is still there right now. Right? So, you know what? I'm just talking because I don't know what the answers are. You know, and collectively, I want to see us all do better. I want to see us all be safe and have appropriate ratios of patients to care for so that everybody can receive the quality care and attention that they deserve. Because I know I may be a nurse, but there are times I've been a patient as well. Any one of us any day could be a patient, right? We could be the ones, rather than standing over the bed, laying in the bed. We want proper care and attention as well. So, I mean, we're not exempt from that side of it, right? As far as healthcare goes, we're not all providers, but we're certainly all consumers. And so we use this system as well. We want it to work for us, but we want it to work equally on both sides, right? So it's, in addition to patients' rights, employees' rights, okay? A right to a safe workplace, a right to fair wages, a right to continuing education, a right to come to work and not be bullied and harassed or discriminated against or silenced. And that's another point I want to bring up too, because in the article about this same stabbing situation, it was also stated that the nurse who spoke to the media spoke under the condition of anonymity due to, you guessed it, fear of reprisal, fear of retribution. Now imagine that. You work in a place where for years nurses have been begging for more security. Ultimately, 2 people get stabbed in the emergency room, one a nurse, one a paramedic. A nurse feels so compelled to speak to the media and yet is still afraid of retribution and retaliation for speaking the truth, her truth, about a situation that spiraled out of control. Afraid of retribution, silenced out of fear. Now think about how powerless those nurses may be feeling, knowing that they begged the administration for safety, basic safety, and were denied. And now they're mourning a death of their colleague. Well, no, I'm sorry, not a death, a stabbing, a physical, a violent assault of their colleague in the very same place that they begged for help, that turned a deaf ear and a blind eye to their pleas. If that's not toxic, I don't know what is. You can't get more toxic than that. So when I say we have got some work to do and some choices to make, I mean, what more can I say? You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself and to your loved ones. Anyway, it's been 23 minutes. I ranted, but I hope that my points have hit home and cause you to think about the environment that you work in. Do you feel safe? Are you heard? Are you being heard? Are you being listened to? Are your concerns being addressed in a way that's tangible and measurable? Not just with, oh yes, 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 we have that on our radar. Oh yes, 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 that's going to be in the strategic plan. That's not enough, because it's time to go beyond talk. We're in an age right now where community, cooperation, and the good of the collective is of utmost importance. Because if one of us can be silenced, we all can be silenced. And that cannot continue to occur. And so I leave you with this today, to just take a time to consider what's most important to you. Just do some contemplation. Come up with a short list of what is most important to you. Maybe just the top 3 things that come to mind. Because where we go from now is going to depend on each of us doing our inner work. And when I say doing our inner work, I mean getting in touch with how we feel about a situation. And this sometimes even goes beyond logic, I want to say. Because you may just begin to feel there's some things you just don't want to do anymore, and you just stop doing it. There may be some of you who just decide to give yourself permission to say no to the stress, the exhaustion, the pain, and the suffering. Just say no. I've had enough. And just sit with how that feels. Feel what it's like to not opt in to the foolishness. To give yourself what I like to call a mental health day or a mental health break, where you just call out or take a few days off and just be with yourself and think about how you feel. Think about what's going on in your workplace. And the reason why this is important is because many of us work, I work, many of us have jobs, that we do, and places that we have to go, right? To support our families, to support ourselves, And how do we feel about the work that we're doing? Okay? Aside from the paycheck, aside from, I don't know, whatever else comes to mind, how do you feel when you get up every day to go to work? What comes to mind the night before? What are you thinking about when your work day ends and you're on your way home? Or you shut down your computer? What are you thinking about what you've dealt with during the hours that you worked? I think that's an important thing to do. I don't know how many of you do that, but let me know in the comments. Do you take time to think about your work day at the end of the work day? Or do you ever do any thinking about what your work day will look like before you start? For those of you who may be meditating, do you meditate before work, during work, or after work? Or do you just think about your experiences? Do you give yourself that time and space to reflect? Because that's where sometimes the answers will come in. in those quiet moments. So we can go within and ask ourselves these questions and see what comes up. And if you'd like to share, go ahead and share. As I said before, this is a safe space. No topic is off limits. Because lately what I've been doing, I have been making a conscious decision to give credence to how I feel. Not so much what I think. Because sometimes I think my mind plays interference with my feelings. And I may tend to ignore my feelings a little bit and revert back to my logical thinking. You know, my scientific brain is at work, and I'm not thinking so much based on how I feel. Or I should say, taking action or not taking action based on how I feel. And what I found is that ignoring my feelings is not a healthy choice either. I would say there needs to be some balance between thinking and feeling, because they go hand in hand, right? We can't be overly intellectual and ignore how we feel, because sometimes a feeling, while it may be more intuitive, may be the thing that allows us to make those important decisions in our lives. Sometimes if you wake up and say, you know what, I don't feel like going to work today. And the mind says, yeah, but you got to go because you know you're low on PTO, or, you know, you got vacation coming up next week, or, you know, something is going on and you just decide, or, you know, this person is going to be out, you know, there's already 2 people out. So you rationalize, you say, you know what, I'm going to go because if I don't go, they're going to be really short today or what have you. And I get that, because as a nurse, we go through that thought process. Well, many of us. I know I did. But on some occasions, it just got to the point where I said, you know what? I don't care if nobody shows up. All I know is, like, I'm not going to, I'm not feeling it today. I don't feel for the stress today. I don't feel for the aggravation today. I don't feel for, you know, you could fill in the blanks. Whatever it is, you just may not be feeling that today. And you just don't go. Now, having made that decision, how do you feel about that? See, we got to take that layer off as well. Do you feel guilty about not going? Do you feel like you were a sellout for not going? Or are you able to happily just lay in your bed, binge watch, or go get your nails done, or whatever? Go to a Pilates class, take an extra long workout, make yourself, I don't know, a nice meal from a recipe you always wanted to try. I mean, I don't know what you do, but you might be doing something. But the one thing you don't want to be doing is beating yourself up for acting out on your feelings to take time for yourself, right? Because who knows? That may be the universe sending you a message. That may be the day you decide, you know what, I'm not going. And that may be the day that your life is spared, or something horrific didn't happen to you because you listened to your voice within you that just said, nah, I'm just not doing it today. And there's no logical explanation for that feeling, right? So you put your thought aside and you went with how you felt. And what I will say in my experience is that I have found that sometimes going with that feeling without any logic associated to it becomes more comforting. Get more comfortable with that, you know? So what? You didn't go to work. What's the worst that could happen? You know, you have a manager or a supervisor or a director that, you know, may give you some lip service, but hey, it is what it is. They're not your parent. You know, they may want to talk to you like you're a little kid, but just let that go. They're going to say what they're going to say anyway. Yeah, but you know what? You felt good because you did something for yourself. You gave yourself permission to say no to something you didn't want to experience on a particular occasion. And that's empowering. And you know what? It starts to feel good, and it feels better and better every time. So I'm saying all that to say, when there are times when you feel you need to take care of yourself and just do you, you don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't have to apologize for it. Okay? Because you matter. Your life has value. You are worth it. If to no one else but to yourself. So listen to yourself. Listen to your inner self. Listen to your feelings. Okay? And tell that monkey mind to shut up. Anyway, I think I'm done for now, and I will see you again soon. So, this is Nurses Speak, the channel for nurses, where no topic is off limits. Like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, bye now.